The Sulamani Temple is a large, very elegant multi-story structure from the late Bagan period. The temple was built during the reign of King Narapattisithu, a very prosperous time in Bagan. During his long reign, several of Bagan's most impressive monuments were built. King Narapattisithu found a small ruby at the spot where the Sulamani temple was later erected, hence the name of the temple, which means small ruby. The Sulamani temple is a two-story structure with a square layout. The large first floor is topped with 3 receding terraces. The upper floor, which is much smaller, is topped with another 4 receding terraces. The corners of both lower and upper terraces contain smaller spires. The top of the Sulamani temple comprises of a sikara, a tower structure originating from North India. Unlike the one of the Ananda temple, the sikara is not gilded. On top of that is the hati, a spire ornament shaped like an umbrella. Bagan survived until the 15th century as a human settlement and as a pilgrimage destination throughout the imperial period. A smaller number of new and impressive religious monuments still dated back to the mid-15th century, but afterward, new temple construction slowed to a trickle, with fewer than 200 temples built between the 15th and 20th centuries. The old capital remained a pilgrimage destination, but the pilgrimage focused only on a score or so of the most prominent temples out of the thousands. The rest of the temples, thousands of less famous and remote temples, fell into despair, and most did not survive the test of time. The Ananda temple is one of Bagan's best known and most beautiful temples. It was one of the first great temples to be built in Bagan, and is well preserved. The temple is found near the Tharabar Gate, the only gate remaining of the original 12 in the old Bagan city walls. The Ananda Pagoda is a single-story structure built towards the end of the early Bagan period. The architectural style shows Mon and North Indian influence. The temple's most distinctive feature is the gilded sikara, the tower-like spire on top of the pagoda. The reflection of the gilded sikara is visible from miles away, over the Bagan plains. After dark, the Ananda Pagoda is lit up by spotlights, creating a mystical atmosphere. A local legend tells the story of the founding of the Ananda temple. 8 monks from India visited Bagan. They were granted an audience by King Kyansitha. The monks told the king about a legendary cave temple in the Himalaya mountains, and created a vision for the king to see the temple and the snowy landscape. The story and vision left the king very impressed, and he decided to replicate the temple in Bagan. It is said that after the Ananda temple was completed, the king had the architects executed to make sure anything like it could never be built again. For the few dozen temples that were regularly sponsored, continued patronage meant regular maintenance, as well as architectural additions donated by devotees. Many temples were repainted with new frescoes over the original ones from the pagan period, or fitted with new statues of Buddha. Then came a series of state-sponsored systematic renovations in the Konbong period 1752 to 1885, which were generally not faithful to the original designs, some finished with a rough plastered surface, tastelessly scratched. The interiors of some temples were also whitewashed, such as the That Bnu and the Ananda. Many painted inscriptions and even murals were added in this period.